changes in matter. So when we look at chemical changes, or before we can look at chemical changes, we have to look at chemical properties. And chemical properties are the ability of a substance to undergo specific chemical changes. This can only be observed, a chemical property can only be observed as the substance is actually in the process of being changed into a new substance. So examples of chemical properties include the ability to burn, maybe like fruit rotting, explosions or exploding, decomposing, and fermenting are all examples of chemical properties. The ability, a substance's ability to do any of these are chemical properties. So then the chemical reaction is the process that happens when one or more substances change into one or more new substances. This is the process that allows us to observe the chemical property. So we also call these chemical changes. So iron rusting is an example of a chemical reaction. It is iron reacting with oxygen to make iron oxide. So a chemical reaction has two parts. It has the reactants, and these are substances that are present at the start of a chemical reaction. And then the product is the substance present at the end of the reaction. And there can be multiple reactants and multiple products. So here we have zinc, and zinc is going to react with the sulfur. We're going to add a little bit of heat, and this is going to produce zinc sulfide. And so the zinc and the sulfur are your reactants, and the zinc sulfide is the product. In most cases, the reactants are listed on the left-hand side of the arrow, and the products are then on the right side of the arrow. So there's some evidence when a chemical reaction happens. One form of evidence can be a color change. And so, for example, you could have a clear substance that you mix with another clear substance, and you end up producing a bright yellow substance. And so that would indicate to you that a chemical reaction has happened. Gas being given off or being produced or bubbling is another indicator that a chemical reaction occurs. And so if you place zinc with some hydrochloric acid, you'll notice some pretty big fizzing. Another pretty common one is your baking soda and vinegar produces a gas because it's a chemical reaction. During some chemical reactions, you will form a precipitate, which is a solid product that forms from the reaction and settles out of the liquid mixture. So here we generally will end up starting with two liquids, adding them together. The reaction takes place and you'll get a solid and 1 part liquid. And so this solid, a way to kind of think about it, this picture up here gives you kind of a good picture of it, is it's kind of flaky almost, or powdery. It's not like you're gonna pour 2 liquids together and get a 2x4 type of solid. So an example would be lead 2 nitrate added with potassium iodide, and you will make a precipitate there. The precipitate would be lead iodide. And then the last evidence for a chemical reaction would be the detectable transfer of energy. So this would be either light, heat, or even sound given off. And so does the reaction produce heat? Well, put your hand towards it. Do you feel it being warm or not? Light, does it make a bright light? Or sound? Sometimes chemical reactions will start to pop. So all chemical changes involve a transfer of energy. But be aware, so do some physical changes like changes in state. They require a change in energy. So the only way to be certain that a chemical change has occurred is to test the composition of the substance after the change has taken place to make sure that a brand new substance was formed.